Okay, so as my first video, I have a little game here that I played in the Izumo together with my brother Nightmare in his Jean Bart. Right now, I'm in the progress of regrinding the Yamato, and I am well, not stuck on the Izumo, but it takes a while to get through because I still need like 90,000 or so XP to go there. So we have a full tier 9 game. Let's take a look at the ships. We have the new Minnesota on our sides, Frederick the Great, 2 Izumos, a Jean Bart. We have a couple of cruisers, of which 2 have radar, the Alaska and the Riga, and we have 2 destroyers, Fletcher and Udaloy. Fletcher being a very good destroyer. And on the other side, we also have a Minnesota, we have a Georgia, an Alsace, Pommern, Musashi. So in terms of battleships, difficult to say. Musashi and Pommern very powerful, but Jean Bart obviously very powerful on our side. They do have also 2 radar cruisers, Buffalo, Alaska. They have the Aegir, or Aegir, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Azuma, also Fletcher, and a Kitakaze. So Kitakaze also very good. So the Izumo, not my favorite ship, has never been, will probably never be, but it has been buffed in the last, well, years, I guess, because it used to be a real piece of, well, you know what I mean. But it has been buffed, the deck armor has been increased, I think, and now it can take quite a beating, and the guns are... Well, there are only 410s, I think, but they are not super... Well, they are fairly accurate, but they are not Yamato guns, obviously. So, you know, once you have the Yamato, there is not that much reason to actually keep the Izumo in your lineup if you need the slot or need the money, whatever. So, beginning of the game, I'm moving towards A in order to take up a somewhat central positions between A and C. Ideally, somewhere around this area right here. My brother and his Jean-Bart going around, maybe doing the same thing for D. We don't want to take both battleships in the same direction here, because we might actually run into... our flanks might need our support. It's not always a good idea to go and take all the ships to the same thing. So I spot an Alaska, and I'm thinking about taking a shot here. I'm actually swinging the ship around so I can bring all 9 guns to bear in the opening salvo, and that's when I spot the Georgia. I do have the Georgia as well. It's a very good tier 9 battleship. It's very, very fast. That's why I'm taking a lot of lead, and I'm using the spotter plane to better estimate where he's actually going. And I'm firing all guns, and then I'm turning in, because the firing angles on the Izumo are not great. The third gun, awesome. 17,000 damage on the first salvo. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to see right here. So I'm slowing down because something is capturing A, and I can't see anything, so it's probably a destroyer. So I want to make sure that I don't need any torpedoes. And I catch a buffalo behind an island, and he's trying to make that island his waifu and hide behind it, as Jingles is wont to say. So I take a pot shot at him, another 15,000, which is very satisfying. And sometimes, I mean, this was the first game of the day, and I think we only did like 3 or 4 games because the other ones turned out to be not as much fun. And then the Alaska is popping his radar, and we spot the Kitakaze. And Kitakaze is bad news. First of all, he can totally farm us with his really rapid firing 100mm guns, and he also has a torpedo reload booster. So it's a very dangerous ship to keep there, and there are probably torpedoes in the water. So I'm firing my AP at him because I don't have expert loader, so I cannot switch to HE quickly enough. And sure enough, there are torps. So we are turning those in and try to avoid these torpedoes coming towards us, while our Fletcher is actually doing, for the moment, a decent job of moving into A, trying to spot that guy. So now we have successfully evaded all torpedoes, and there's a Musashi there. I'm trying to get a pot shot at the Musashi over the island, even though I can't really see that. And I want to hit the vulnerable cheek armor underneath his turrets. But I hit something else. I probably hit the turrets themselves, and it completely bounces. So now, our Fletcher is engaging the Kitakaze in a gunfight, which is questionable. Kitakaze has better guns and more of them. And I'm reloading really slowly here, waiting. And I know that I won't get the Kitakaze in this position, and he disengaged. So I'm really torn between shooting at the broadside buffalo and shooting at the Kitakaze. I probably should have shot the Kitakaze for good measure. But it's a broadside cruiser who then evades my shells because he's turning out. So now it's a fairly difficult position. We have the Georgia on the flank, but he's turning away. We have those battleships in front. The Musashi could really hurt us. And we have a Kitakaze somewhere south of A hunting our Fletcher. And the Fletcher is just sticking in its smoke at the moment, which is not really good. But I do have support. My brother in the Jean Bart is moving up, preparing to assist. And the Jean Bart actually has a reload booster, so he might be able to just blab the Kitakaze if he shows up. So now I'm starting to get fire spam from over here, and those are the shells from the Kitakaze just coming in a steady rain. So I'm turning my nose towards him thinking there might be more torpedoes on the way, and also I want to shatter as many shells on my armor as I can. But still, this is not a good position to be in, to be fire spammed by a ship that I cannot see. So I'm actually reversing away from here and checking what other targets are in the area right now. On the decap, in the meantime, our Udoloy is in the process of capping, while the Izumo and Rune over at C10 are in a questionable position, pretty far away from the action. Yeah, someone actually noticed right there. So I take a pot shot at the Minnesota because that's a thick boy, should be easy to hit, and yeah, the damage was not huge, was okay. At least I hit him. And I used the third turret, which is not in a position to shoot forward at the Minnesota, to shoot over at the Georgia. And now we realize that the enemy Udoloy is actually in B behind us. And at the same time, we lose our Fletcher and we lose our Frederick the Great. So things are getting a little more spicy here. Luckily, the Fletcher actually sacrificed his ship in order to block that torpedo gap in front of me. So now I have a decision to make. If we push in towards the Kitakaze, this might, not end very well. We have to check whether we can turn away and do something without giving broadside to the Musashi. And there's the Buffalo again. So I shoot my guns at the Buffalo. I actually thought I shot all three, but I only shot at first only one turret, and then I shot the others. And come on, delete that guy. Nope. RNGesus says nope. Which is like, ugh. Okay. So I was thinking about switching to HE to fight the Udoloy, but I decided to go for one more AP salvo against the Buffalo. Because he's just so nice and broadside. Right there. And there I did it again. I didn't fire all three guns because they were not in sync. And now I'm switching to HE. So maybe a missed opportunity right there. Oh, it's not the Udoloy, it's actually the Fletcher. Oh, I think I did a jingles there. But they don't have a Udoloy, they only have a Fletcher. Never mind, the enemy Fletcher captured B. And now he's coming around and fighting the Brindisi. So I'm slowing down. Luckily, I have a back turret. The third turret is actually in a position that I can hit him. And between the Brindisi, the Jean Bart, and me, there's no way that this guy can survive. Especially since the Brindisi here actually evaded the torpedoes from the Fletcher, and I might have knocked out the other torpedo tube on it with the first salvo of HE. So far, so good. Now, switching back to AP, taking a look at the map. We have control of, well, pretty much two of the caps. A cap is still neutral, C cap belongs to the enemy, and the enemy is pretty much pushed back into their spawn, which is always good because we have, at least for the moment, map control. So I'm thinking about what I want to do now when I spot the Brindisi right there. And the Brindisi does 8,000 damage to me with his puny guns and his sap ammunition. And I just tell my brother right now, I hate sap because you can't angle against it and it's just blah. But to be fair, in return, I actually hit him with an AP salvo that hurt him quite a lot more. And there we have torpedoes again. And these are the torpedoes from the Kitakaze, obviously. Which I assume that the Kitakaze stayed over at A, but he actually moved between A and D, and I took a pretty big hit from him there. But my brother is now moving up in the Jean Bart and presenting himself as a target for anyone who wants to shoot something. Jean Bart, really not a pretty ship. Not a big fan of it, but it's pretty strong. 380mm turrets. You know. 380mm guns, and they do a lot of damage, especially with the reload booster and if you get the enemy broadside. So we spot the Kitakaze again. I pop my spotter plane, and I take a shot at him. Just try to delete that guy. But I don't manage. But we have the Udaloy spotting for us in front, which is promising enough. And we're just keeping an eye right now on the enemy ships. We are not spotted. And we can take, you know, careful aim. We still have the spotter plane. And I'm checking out whether I could actually hit the Minnesota, but it turns out that island is just a little too high for me to fire over it, even at this distance. I assumed, you know, at that distance I can just lob the shells. That didn't work. So we're now pushing in again. Spotting the enemy Georgia. It's pretty low, but he's hunting our rune down, and the rune is actually, you know, not very happy about that. So we give him a broadside and try to, you know, do a little damage to him. He doesn't need much. And we completely miss. Well, that's the problem with the Georgia. I have that ship. I like it a lot. It's super fast. It makes it sometimes difficult to hit. But together with the other fire, the Alaska can take down the Georgia. So we're looking around again for targets. There's the crazy Buffalo again, who has survived several salvos that he should not have survived. And I'm thinking, well, if he's moving forward right now, he will probably try to move behind the island in cover. So I wait for him to make that turn. I'm actually quite proud of myself that I, you know, it's almost a Flamu level of strategic thinking. And when he's committed to the turn, I fire my guns. And then my brother takes the kill and shoots the Buffalo before I can do anything. So, great. Anyway, still, there's enough stuff to shoot at the moment, and we still haven't won. We're in the lead by, you know, 160 points. But that's no guarantee for winning. Especially since we lost now the Alaska to the Musashi. And my brother also takes out the Kitakaze.
Torpedoes, direct front.
Probably due to his reload booster. I think his guns might have been reloaded very fast because of that. So, we take aim at the Musashi. Musashi is, at this distance, still a very big threat. If he fires back, he might overmatch my armor if I get into the wrong position here. But he is focused on the Brindisi, I think. So we can actually get a couple of shots in. And you could see how I was turning in the ship, taking the opportunity of the third turret to fire here. And I kind of underestimated his speed a little bit. So we we ricochet 2 of our shells on his armor belt. I have to be careful. We don't want to push up too much. We're in a pretty good central position right now, but we don't want to push up too far, because then we will get into a crossfire between the Alsace, the Brindisi, Alaska, and the Musashi in Minnesota on the other side, and we will not survive that very long. But here's the same thing. Musashi is probably trying to get behind the island, so maybe we can get another salvo in. There. Udaloy torpedoed the Minnesota, and the Minnesota killed our Brindisi. Now he's turning his nose in, and he cannot see me right now. And I'm waiting until all my turrets have reloaded, and now I'm aiming for the vulnerable cheek underneath his turret. Well, I'll show in a second. And with some luck, we can actually get a citadel here, right here. And we managed 17,000 damage against the Musashi. And I think this is where I made a mistake right now. I thought the Musashi was going to go behind that island and north into A, but he's actually turning nose in towards the Jean Barn and me, and I'm already swinging my turrets around and taking aim at the Brindisi. I did not pay attention enough to the Musashi. I completely miscalculated that. Wow, whatever that was. Camera going crazy here. So, Brindisi. And now I realize, oh shit. the Musashi is actually moving into a position where I'm giving him way too much broadside. So I'm repairing my rudder because until then I didn't really care, and I'm trying to put my nose towards him. And while I am putting the nose towards him, I've synced the Brindisi with a Citadel. So far, 108,000 damage, which is very satisfying. Well, it's not like a super game from Flamu, Flambas or whatever, but doing 100,000 in a damage, if I could do that regularly, I would be quite happy. So we take aim again at Musashi's front nose, cheek Citadel, and we manage to sink him. And now we only have the Alsas and the Azuma on the enemy team. And the Azuma, obviously, a really nasty fire spammer at almost 20-kilometer distance. Very difficult to hit. But we can actually give this still a try. But I'm out of heals. I have tanked 3.4 million damage, done 117,000 damage. So if I get set on fire with 2 or 3 fires, then that's game over for me. So I have to be a little careful here to disengage. And I don't have to win harder. I mean, we have this game in the bag. And another 10,000 on the Azuma. And I was actually hoping to, get a lucky Citadel on him, so I'm popping the spotter plane, taking one more aim at him, firing, but I'm not sure that the shells will actually get there. Nope. And the game ends with a win, which was the first game of the day, and that was actually kind of nice that we managed to do that. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.